lead them on through this series of stories. And some of them are tightly choreographed with music and with images, kind of like a music video.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sitting there playing the guitar and speaking live. And some of them are more stop and go, where I, will tell a story without time constraints, and cue in an image for certain effect, or and a lot of my images, they serve as either setups or punchlines. So, and I can sit there and I can interact with the video screen. I interact with the audience. I interact with my laptop if it acts up. Sometimes it does. And so it's a very interactive show where I'm sitting there. And I was thinking about this the other day, about 30% of my dialogue is spontaneous.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I react to the people who are sitting in front of me. And so when I have a good crowd and they respond, that gives me a lot to work with.
Do they ask you questions during your show?
Not usually, but sometimes I prompt them.
Okay.
Or sometimes I set up a premise that leaves an obvious question hanging, and I wait to see if they'll take the bait. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Okay. I was just wondering about that, how interactive it was that way. But it's still, it sounds like an amazing show. And what I've seen on video of, the preview of it, I would definitely love to see that one day.
Well, come on out. I got plenty of tickets left.
Believe me, if I could go to California right this second, I'd be on a plane. But
yeah, okay. And where again are you, Tam?
I'm in Chicago.
Chicago, okay. Well, they got the Chicago Fringe Festival. Maybe it'll come out.
Yeah, we have to check into that. There's a lot of theaters around here. I would imagine they have to have something like that. Now,
there's definitely a Chicago Fringe Festival. There definitely is that.
Is there? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, then we'll have to check that out. Now, another thing I was curious about was at one point you lived in a beer tank. You've got to explain that to me.
That is correct. And I'm glad you brought that up. I do make a great point of pitching that idea, and that's one of the things that made me think that this is a really interesting story, just because I have this story. But the story is, we moved out to San Francisco. We didn't know anybody out there. I did have a relative out there that I had met once, and he was kind enough, my Uncle Edward was kind enough to put us up for a week. We didn't really want to stay much longer. Mm-hmm. But so we're there, and we're trying to find a place to live in San Francisco. And we didn't have any money, and we certainly didn't have any jobs. So that kind of scratched out filling out a rental application, because that's the first thing they ask you is where do you work and how much do you make.
Can you pay for this thing? Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, well, that's a no. And, we had already started performing, and we were making money. Not a lot of money, because our show wasn't very good, but we were still making money in our hat. And we had heard about, live workspace, artist warehouse space, and there were a couple places in the Mission District in San Francisco that were kind of very well-established, remodeled warehouse space where artists could live and work. Now those, there's 10-year waiting lists to get into those. But then we saw an ad in the paper that was advertising artist warehouse space. So we said, oh, cool, we'll go check that out. So we drove in, and then we arrived, and what we discovered is what they were offering was a building that used to be part of the Hams Brewery. Where they brewed Hams beer. And the building that they were offering contained storage vats that used to age the beer. Mm-hmm. So they were renting out beer vats.
Interesting.
Right. That's what we said.
Interesting.
We kind of walked in, and the first thing you notice is the stench of stale beer. It sounds like
gosh, I can imagine.
a week-old frat party. It got 10 times stronger. And we walk in, and it's this long hallway, and it's all tiled, and on either side there are these like portholes. So it's like the size of a manhole. And the street, there are these holes in the side of the wall, about the size of a manhole cover, and it was a vessel meant to hold liquid.
Right.
And people were living in them. And most of these people were kind of like, otherwise they would have been homeless people. They were kind of, a little bit on the bum side and didn't have any money and probably subsisted on city assistance, and it didn't cost much, and it was out of the weather, so they're living in a beer tank. And then we had our reasons, and we really didn't have any choice. And so it was the middle of the month. It was $200 a month. So we were able to give them $100, and we had a place to live. So there we were.
Wow. How long did you stay there?
Well, we stayed there for about a year.
Wow.
That long?
Yeah, well, yes, I'm afraid so. We got lucky because we didn't stay in the beer tank for very long, because the landlords liked us a lot, because we were the only people that were going out in the day and working. We'd go out down to Fisherman's Wharf, and we'd try and learn our street show, and we'd pass the hat, and we'd make some money, and then we'd come home, and we used to have this trick where we'd dump all of our hat money onto the floor, and then it's okay, one for you, one for me, one for us. One for you, one for me, one for us. The one for us was the business pool. And,
right.
That's where the rent money came from. And so we paid our rent, every month on time and in cash, and we're working for it. So they liked us, so they gave us a chance to move out of the beer tank and move up to the top floor, where there was this facility room that they let us move into. And it was a great big room with a great big sort of double door on it that looked out over the Mission neighborhood. And it was called the Yeast Culture Room. And this is where they used to culture to grow the yeast for the fermentation process. And now it became our home. So we got to live in there for part of the duration.
Well, at least you had windows at that point. I mean,
we did.
I can't imagine living somewhere where you don't have windows.
Well, I can. What was really weird about it is, you'd go to bed at night, and you'd wake up, and you would have no idea what time it was, because it's pitch black, and it's always pitch black, and the place always sounded a little weird, because the people who lived there, some of them were a little unstable, and
right.
It was very windy, and so you could hear the wind blowing, and you could hear the echoing of all these sounds, and you'd hear, screaming and laughing and moaning and partying and whatever, crying, and that would all kind of mishmash together into this reverberation, and, you'd wake up in the middle of the night, and it could be 3 o'clock in the morning, it could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You have no idea which one it was. And it was very bizarre.
Wow. I just, I'm the type of person that has to see the sunshine and has to have a window. I guess if it came down to it, you have to do what you have to do, and you have to have a roof over your head, no matter if it's got windows or doors or not. If it's just got a hole to walk through, that's what you do, in the meantime, until you can move somewhere else. So I'm glad you made it to the top floor at that point.
Yeah, the Yeast Culture Room was great.
Yeah. Can you still drink beer, or is it like eggs? You just can't deal with it anymore?
No, it's not like eggs at all.
Okay.
Well,
fact,
we're getting.
Go
ahead. No, go ahead.
I probably have a more fondness and appreciation of beer now.
Yes. The culture of beer.
In fact, when I did my shows in Fresno at the Fresno Road Festival, I performed at a venue that was a bar and a brewery. They brewed their own beer. And when they saw my piece, because I have a piece on living in the beer tank, and I have all these pictures of the interior, the Yeast Culture Room and of the inside of the beer tank where we lived. Mm-hmm. And it's very graphic, and and when they saw that, I kind of made some real new friends because they thought, boy, anybody who can live in a beer tank, is. So we had a lot to talk about in terms of brewing beer.
I can imagine. I think you were probably at the Full Circle Brewing Company, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, I have a friend who's involved with the Rogue Festival, Blake Jones from Blake Jones and the Trike Shop, and you sound like you're right up his alley because he loves all sorts of cool arts and entertainment type stuff. Yes,
in fact, I recall Blake. I did meet Blake when I was there last year. He plays. Does he play the theremin?
Yes, he does. He was playing in a trio. It was theremin, harp, and percussion.
I saw them last year. They were very, very good.
They are good. He'll use the theremin in pop music, so he plays guitar as well in his other band. But he's just my shining example of all that is good and right in the art scene in Fresno.
Yeah. I didn't get to know him real well, but you get to meet him and see him work, and he was very, very good.
Well, that's interesting. You guys have things in common, So maybe next time you're out to see Blake, you can catch Andrew.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well, I will strive to be back to the Fresno Festival. That was a fun festival, and that's in March, I think. So.
March every year. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope to be back to that.
Well, you sure wouldn't be doing a festival in Chicago in March.
Well, the New York Fringe Festival is in February, and they call it Frigid Festival.
Oh, my gosh.
Frigid Festival.
Yeah, it's more like it. Oh, my gosh. Well, we're getting to the top of the hour here, and I would like to let our listeners know where they can check out your show. It's the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and Andrew will be there June 14th, 23rd, 28th, and 30th at the Theater Asylum, which is at 6320 Santa Monica Boulevard. And tickets are $10, and you can find them on hollywoodfringe.org. Now, do they have to buy these ahead of time, or can they purchase them once they get to the festival?
Well, presumably, if it's not sold out, and frankly, none of my shows have been sold out yet. So, if they're not sold out, you can certainly get them at the door.
Okay, good to know. Also, check out Andrew's website for upcoming shows, news, and more about him at theroadtohighstreet.com. And then you're also on Facebook, so be sure to like his page. It would be facebook.com/Andrew Potter's Road to High Street. And you can follow him on Twitter at Road to High Street, and the 2 is the number 2. Can they find you anywhere else, or do they pretty much cover all your social media?
That pretty much covers it. That pretty much covers it.
Wonderful. Well, I want to say break a leg for the rest of your shows, but I always feel guilty saying that because I don't want that to really happen. But and I want to thank you for joining us today. It was such an interesting show. You're welcome.
That was great. Nice meeting you, Andrew.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome back anytime. Keep in touch, and we'll let listeners know where you're going to be next.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Andrew.
Well, I've only seen a few street performers, and that's basically when I was around, Disneyland area. I'm trying to think. Oh, New Orleans, too. In New Orleans, I've seen some street performers, but that's about it. And that's always very interesting to me, especially mimes and that, too. I think they're very talented people.
Absolutely, and the area that he got his start in, Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, it really is a pretty amazing place for that. I saw, in the same day, last fall, I saw a guy who was sort of dressed as a silver robot. His body was painted all in silver. And I saw another guy who was a sword swallower. And honestly, I'd never seen that done in person. That's kind of scary looking. But
oh,
the guy
gosh, yeah.
It's
hard to even watch on TV.
Yeah, he really did do that. You could almost see his eyes watering a little bit when he was doing that, so you knew he was really doing a sword.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
That's not one of my cups of tea.
I wouldn't want to miss. Would not want to miss.
Yeah, that's pretty dangerous. I mean, it's like Andrew playing with fireballs.